Tennessee football did have a spring game on Saturday. Yeah, how about that? Tennessee had a spring game on Saturday. Who knew? The Vols played to a 14-14 tie. The way they did it, there were 1-on-1 skills competitions, then there were 7-on-7s, and then there were 11-on-11s. Jake Merklinger and Mike Matthews had some nice connections on 7-on-7s. When the 11-on-11s happened, though, and this is another reason to go with George McIntyre as we're talking about the spring game, is George McIntyre led, there were 8 tries. George McIntyre led the Vols on 3 touchdown drives. Jake Merklinger led the Vols on 1 touchdown drive. Now, Jake Merklinger worked with the first team, so it's a little bit easier to judge. But while he went against first team defense, he also had more first team help. And McIntyre did do 1 drive with the first team. So I think with that in mind, McIntyre outplayed him. But what really stood out for Tennessee in the spring game was freshman pass catchers. And I got a column on this online right now. Tennessee's freshman pass catchers stand out in the spring game. Dropping the link in the chat now. Tennessee's freshman pass catchers balled out in the Vols spring game. It's hard to glean anything from spring games, but honestly, this was pretty impressive. For those who don't remember, Miles Kitselman, who is a leader of this team, was banged up. Tennessee needs to find another option there, even if Ethan Davis is going to work out. Tight end Jack Van Dorselier was the star in this game. Dorselier is 6'5", 236 pounds. He was a 4-star coming out of Texas. Texas recruits tend to be ready early more than others. Their ceiling is not as high as others, but they tend to be ready pretty quickly because high school football is so good down there. And Dorselier was a baller. Okay. He ended up catching 3 touchdown passes in the game throughout the various drills and really stood out. Caught 2 passes over the middle, then caught 1 on an obvious touchdown pass that was just a great play call, but he still had to make the play. Jack Van Dorselier looks like he could be a heck of a tight end for Tennessee, guys. Jack Van Dorselier, as a true freshman, was by far the standout of the game, and I think Jack Van Dorselier could end up being really good. He showed a crisp route running. He was able to see the ball in when he was making catches. Watch out for him. He could push Ethan Davis, and if Miles Kitselman is not ready to go by the start of spring, Van Dorselier could be dangerous. Now, he's not the only tight end, though, that stood out for Tennessee in the spring game on Saturday, interestingly enough. Deshaun Brom also stood out. Now, he's another 4-star tight end, comes from Kansas. He stands at 6'4", 230, so he's got to put on a little bit of weight. Van Dorselier does too, by the way, but Brom definitely has to put on weight. Right now, he would just be like a bigger receiver, almost like the way Bill Belichick runs his tight ends or ran him with the Patriots. But he didn't have any catches, but he caught multiple passes, and I think was the second leading receiver in like all pass catchers in the game. So Deshaun Brom was, look, just watch out for that. Okay, so I think that he could end up being the best player of all of them. I want to show, before we move on, first Van Dorselier. I want to show this highlight of Van Dorselier. This is a catch, and I'm sharing it with you guys now, that Van Dorselier had in the spring game over the weekend. And this is a great play by a tight end. This shows exactly what Tennessee could be able to do with Van Dorselier. So look at this play right here. This is George McIntyre, by the way, making the throw. Here. I'm going to show it again right here. This is Jake Merklinger around when throwing to Jack Van Dorselier. Catches the pass in double coverage, runs it in for a touchdown. Okay, that happened. And then there's McIntyre again. Look at this. He throws it right over the middle. Van Dorselier jumps up, makes a great catch. Kind of reminds me of that Ethan Wolf touchdown against Florida in 2016. Go back and look at that when Tennessee was coming back. Again, Deshaun Bram stands out too. But then with Chris Brazel and Braylon Staley both out, likely starters this year, and Mike Matthews doing most of the work in 7-on-7, Tennessee turned to true freshman newcomers at receiver to see who would stand out. And I know I'm a Memphis kid, but I know I'm come from Memphis, but it's not biased to Memphis to say that Rodarius Jackson, who also hails from Memphis, Sheffield High, was balling in this game. Rodarius Jackson had 3 catches. He had a touchdown, but the touchdown catch was not the most impressive catch he made in the game. He also had this incredible one-handed grab that I'm going to show you guys here. Rodarius Jackson looks like a super elite wide receiver. Watch this play here. Okay? Look at this play by Jackson. One-handed grab with the guy all in his face. Rodarius Jackson had the play of the spring game for Tennessee. He looked like a baller. Jackson is 6'2", 206 pounds. He already looks like another option at wideout. Tennessee needs a backup option behind Brazel and Matthews because so many receivers hit the portal this year. They're going to turn to one of their freshmen if they have to for depth purposes. Darius Jackson could end up being that guy. That was an incredible catch. He had 3 catches on the day. And I'm going to set up the poll question now. Which freshman pass catcher was most impressive in the spring game? Which Vols true freshman pass catcher was most impressive in the orange and white game? And the options are going to be Jack Van Dorsleer. Sorry, I'm just getting these up now. These are hard names to spell, just so you guys know. Desan Brom. And then the final option is going to be Redarius Jackson. You guys vote on that. Let me know what you think. Portions of the program and a recap of the spring game brought to you by Double D Piping. Again, vote on this now.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the
Dylan Elam says that the pride of Sheffield High School in Memphis, Tennessee. That's right. That is where Redarius Jackson hails from. It's over. That was it. I got to be honest. I think the most impressive was Redarius Jackson, and the biggest standout was Redarius Jackson, largely because there was that one-handed grab that you just can't ignore, but also because Tennessee needs more depth at wideout than anywhere else. They have 2 wideouts that they know can start this year. One didn't even start last year, and I'm obviously talking about Mike Matthews. Chris Brazel's the other one. Between the freshmen that they had come in, they had 3 freshmen come in at wideout to offset the losses they had at wideout during the offseason. Obviously, Redarius Jackson was one of them. Jackson was probably the standout, one of the 2 standouts, excuse me. He was a 4-star. The other one, Travis Smith Jr. from Atlanta, another 4-star. Joaquin Dotson, a 3-star. Now, Amari Jefferson would obviously be able to provide depth too. He transferred from Alabama, and he can play wideout or in the slot, but his size suggests more in the slot. And he also has to come back from injury, so that's where you get the Braylon Staley and the Boo Carter working in the slot. Dotson, Jackson, and Smith are all true wideouts. One of them's got to back up Brazel and Matthews. Look, Josh Heupel's system, typically he likes a shortened rotation. 2 wideouts, a slot. Period. End of story. Tennessee was at its best when 3 years ago they had Cedric Tillman, Ramel Keaton, and Velus Jones Jr. 2 years ago they had Cedric Tillman and then Brew McCoy because Tillman got hurt. And on the opposite side, they had Ramel Keaton and Jalen Hyatt. Hyatt became the Bolitnikov corner in the slot, but that was because McCoy dictated coverage. What you need in a Heupel's system is a wideout who dictates coverage, another wideout who is a possession receiver, and then a slot guy who is just a straight speedster who can torch the field. The problem last year was Rue McCoy was just not himself. He had clearly lost a step, so he couldn't dictate coverage. And Squirrel White, the slot, was dealing with an injury. And so Dante Thornton, who was the complimentary receiver, had to be the leading receiver. And he did a good job, but it's just not how things were meant to work out. And Chris Brazel's meant to be the possession receiver anyway. That's why you throw a lot of 50-50 balls up to him and see what happens. So I think with that in mind, Tennessee needed to switch things around a little bit. And I think this year it's a lot more obvious. Mike Matthews is an athletic, speedy receiver. He should be able to dictate coverage. Chris Brazel is a possession receiver on the opposite side. Heck of a possession receiver with NFL potential. And then your slot is Braylon Staley. And then, yes, Boo Carter, because they have to work in Boo Carter. That's why he came back. And I think Amari Jefferson will be the 3rd slot guy, but he's going to ride the bench this year because they need more depth when he's got to get healthy. He's just got to get fully healthy. But on the outside, if Matthews and Brazel are your 2 wideouts, complementary to each other, you need a 3rd one just in case there's injury or just for depth or just for rest. And that's where you come down to probably Redarius Jackson or Travis Smith. From the spring game, it looks like Redarius Jackson was the standout. The poll question was Vols' true freshman pass catcher was the most impressive in the orange and white game. Jack Van Dorslier gets 31%. Darius Jackson gets 69%. Nobody voted for Desan Brim. Going to go to a super chat by Timothy McGee. I thought the true freshman looked better than Merklinger. He could run and also throw the ball in stride. You're talking about George McIntyre. Yes, I agree. I think George McIntyre is a better quarterback and looked better than Merklinger too. Again, did go most of the time up against the second team, but he shows more raw potential than Merklinger. If he can get more talent, if he can get more polished and pick up a little more weight, then I think he could be great. Derek Owen brings up a good point that Tyler Bray was thin. It never mattered. No, that's true. But remember, they didn't start Tyler Bray the first season for the first half of the first season in 2010. And Peyton was thin too, but Peyton was playing behind a massive offensive line. And Tyler Bray actually later in his career played behind 4 NFL offensive linemen. So we got to be fair on that front because it is a little bit different.